Okay, I think with that, we are live on Facebook. We are recording, and we'll go ahead and kick this off. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Pulse on Downtown Fort Lauderdale. This is our spring break edition. Happy Friday. It is gorgeous outside, and we are so excited to have a really amazing dynamic lineup today of residents of Downtown Fort Lauderdale, folks that can really shed some light on what it's like to be part of this wonderful community. This installment is focusing on our residential sector from a real estate market viewpoint. And we have none other than Ken Krasnow with Colliers International. Ken, we're so happy that you're back and that you continue to partner with us. And we can tell the story of just this amazing place that we all call home and fun. So let's get started. I am Jenni Morejon. I am the president and CEO of the Fort Lauderdale Downtown Development Authority. We are a public-private partnership agency that powers the experience, the growth, and the prosperity of downtown Fort Lauderdale, a vibrant metropolitan city that is evolving at the center of the South Florida region, where all are inspired to live like locals. To kick it off, I mentioned Ken will jump right into a presentation on our spring 2020 Downtown FTL residential real estate report. And I am thrilled to introduce 4 panelists that will then follow up with a lively dialogue Q&A. And we of course welcome questions from those who have joined us. We have serial entrepreneur, author, and coach, Dr. Ty Richardson. Hi, Ty. We have realtor Chad Scott, longtime Flagler Village resident. I've worked with you on and off on many exciting projects over the years. Excited to reconnect here on Zoom this morning. And we have the powerhouse duo, amplified by a lot of caffeine that they either drink or serve. But we have Brandon and Nicole Wells of Wells Coffee Company. So thank you all for joining us. Ken, let's get this party started. I'm going to hand it over to you and we'll kick off our residential real estate report for spring 2022.
All right. Thank you, Jenni. And yeah, we're so excited to be partnering with the DDA again and, give everybody an update on all of the wonderful things that are happening in our great city. As Jenni said, we're going to focus on some of the residential metrics and what's happening in the residential world. And then, like Jenni said, I'm very excited to hear from Chad and Brendan and Ty, Nicole about, really the vibrancy that they feel, every single day living and working, in this great city. So let's jump into the report, the full report. I'm just giving you a high level overview today. The full report, Jenni and team will release, I assume right after this, webinar. It's chock full of great data. And that's really kind of where we start because, as people look to move their businesses or as people look to relocate, data is king. Everybody has access to it now. Everybody wants to know what the data tells them. And the data, as you can see on this screen, I'm not going to go through every point, but the data tells you that this is an extremely attractive and vibrant place to be. As you see there, we're approximately 21,000 residents in downtown now. That's a good 12% year-over-year increase, much higher than what you see in other parts of Broward County. Excitingly, if you really look over the next 5 years, it's projected to be almost 30,000 residents. So that's a really exciting kind of growth curve that we're on. And again, people want to be in a city that's vibrant, that's growing, that's exciting. And so a lot of the demos that you see on the right there, we're a very young city, again, very important, but it's also diverse. As much as we have a very strong population in kind of the millennial world, you're also seeing a lot of the empty nesters and so on and so forth that are choosing to move into the vibrancy of downtown. So balance is also a very important driver in terms of where people and businesses want to move because, again, diversity, balance, everything. Educated, it's a smart It's a cultured city. As you see there, 55% of the residents have a bachelor's degree or higher. That's twice where it was in 2010. So, the talent is migrating. The intellectual capital is migrating into the city. The other point that I'll bring up, and we'll harp on a little bit as we get into some of the numbers, as you see there, renters, 61% of the population are renting. Generally speaking, we want to see a little bit more balance in that demographic. And I think as we move forward, you'll see that we will get there. But obviously, it's a strong rental market. The next slide talks a little bit about, again, a little bit of the demographics that we're seeing. I mentioned about the population in terms of the diversity. It's also for a lot of the retailers that are looking where they want to locate. This is a very affluent, city. As you can see there, approximately 16% greater than 200,000, well over half, are greater than 75. But again, I also bring to the point that obviously also says there's about 40% that is under 75,000, and affordability, as we'll see as we go through some of the slides, is continuing to be a part of the challenge here. So there's a lot of strength in the demographics in terms of population growth, job growth, income growth. However, there's still a population that we need to respond to in terms of an affordability factor. As we look where Fort Lauderdale, and particularly I'm talking about the downtown market, the next slide talks about where the downtown market compares with regard to our brethren to the north and to the south. And as you can see there, the downtown is approximately 10,000 units now. It's grown. It's the highest rent compared to our brothers and sisters in Palm Beach and Miami. It's also got the highest occupancy rate. So a market that is certainly performing on all cylinders. Miami was delivering a lot of units over the last couple of years. And as you can see there, their year over year rent increases was the highest as those units are starting to get absorbed, and they're not delivering as many as we are. And as you can see on the next slide, there's a lot of deliveries that have come into our market over the last couple of years. And it gives you a breakdown of where all of these buildings rank. So again, when you go through the report, you'll be able to go kind of building by building, kind of the downtown skyline. I bring a couple of things to your attention on this. So I mentioned before on the prior slide, our occupancy rate was 96 point. When you take out a couple of buildings that are in what we call lease-up phase, the buildings that are new, that are being delivered, that are in leasing up, those are still roughly, half occupied. So when you take some of that out of the equation, our occupancy is really over 98%, which is incredibly strong. And if you look, I know this is a small slide, but when you see the report, you'll see along the bottom there, rent. And, there's just been a strong growth in rent. A couple of years ago when, the Amari was viewed to be the top of the market and people were talking about, $3.50 rent square foot. You're seeing now in buildings like Alluvion and Society, Las Olas, rents that are, well over $4 a square foot. So the demand is there. And obviously, as you can see, supply is kind of struggling to keep up, which is why, we're seeing such strong rent growth in the market. And to the next slide, when you see this kind of strong rent growth in the market, capital is attracted to our market, and people want to invest in these high growth, high rent markets. And as you can see, there are a couple of great transactions that have closed. A couple of years ago, we were very, sort of proud of the fact that institutional capital, the true kind of blue bloods of institutional capital were investing in our market, and they still are. As you can see there with Avalon Bay or Union, which is a huge German pension fund. We're still seeing huge institutional capital, but now it's also cool to invest in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And you see, Grant Cardone is a social media star and crowdfunding. And Adam Newman, who is the founder of WeWork, again, kind of the personification of, kind of a cool factor. So you look at the amount of capital that is coming into our city, and you're seeing, unit prices that are, now well over kind of, approaching over $500,000 a unit. That portends to continued rent growth. And again, that's a kind of a supply and demand kind of equation. So it's just an extremely strong investment market in the residential space, but not to be outdone. I'm sure everybody saw, today or yesterday in the paper that, Related and their partner bought the Las Olas Square at 500 East Las Olas for $145 million. And so it's not just in the residential space, it's in the retail space, it's in the office space. People are investing in the city because of a lot of the strong demographic data that I was sharing with you earlier. As we move a little bit more granular, and then I think, as we get through the panel, but great cities have great neighborhoods. And Fort Lauderdale, as you can see by some of the depictions and so on and so forth, it has clearly evolved and is continuing to evolve into a great city. A city that's got diversity in neighborhoods where, people that are attracted to luxury, whether it's at Alluvion or projects like that, or people that are more in the millennial, young, hip, that are moving to a society or to some of the projects in Flagler Village. You see there, this is a very, pet-friendly, it's a very family-friendly city. So it's a city that's got everything for everybody, which is, again, what ultimately makes for a great, well-balanced, diverse city. As we get into some of the specifics, and again, in the report, on the next slide, we talk about some of the breakdowns on, the various neighborhoods. And what you see here, and what you'll see on the, can you go back one, Verity? Sorry. What you'll see in the report is a sub breakdown by each of the, back to the map, each of the sub-market categories. And what the story will tell you is of an expanding downtown. So what you're seeing in areas like Flagler Village, and I know Chad will talk about this, is, really strong, year over year population growth, somewhere in the neighborhood of 146% population growth. The condo and the single family home numbers have been flat because it's been such a strong run up, but there's been a lot of rent and a lot of population growth. Same thing in, areas like the Dorsey River Bend. And as you go, kind of west on Broward, originally there was a push north, Flagler, and Progresso, but even in areas like Dorsey and Sailboat Bend, as you'll see in the report, had almost a 20% year over year price increase, and Progresso has a 20% population growth. So again, an expanding and diversifying downtown, but not to be outdone, the areas that are historically are, stable family luxury areas, the Rio Vistas, the Harbor Beach, the Las Olas Isles continue to be extremely strong performers. Las Olas Isles, for argument's sake, had a 37% year over year price increase. Numbers there are probably close to $800 a square foot. Again, you'll see that in the report. Same thing in Harbor Beach. Harbor Beach had a 68% year over year increase, and you're looking at numbers there over $900 per square foot. So again, this is a market, as you start digging into the data in the report, that has something for everybody. North, south, east, west, luxury, diversity, affordability, etc. So it's an exciting time, certainly to be in Fort Lauderdale. And as we wrap up the report, we talk a little bit about kind of where we are in the market cycle. The things that, again, I bring to your attention that you're starting to see historically, we talked about a lot of trends that were happening kind of pre-pandemic that have been accelerated throughout the pandemic. Migration, people being drawn to our city is definitely one of them. The key differentiator there is now how diversified that is. If you look on the top 10 there, you're seeing 3 areas in the middle there, California and Midwest. So it's no longer just a Northeast migration. And if you look at some of the attributes on the right side, everybody always talks about, yes, it's lower costs and taxes and so on and so forth. But increasingly, the cluster effect, the attraction of talent, the pro-business environment, a city that's known for being innovative. I know Commissioner Glassman was on earlier, but a city that embraces, innovation, public-private partnerships, tunnels, all kinds of things are things where is an attractor for this kind of talent, and the companies are seeing where their employees are moving because, again, the pandemic had kind of freed up the workforce to be able to be working kind of from anywhere, and they're choosing to come to Fort Lauderdale. And the companies, the Googles, the Yahoos, the Microsoft, they're paying attention to where this cluster of talent is. So it's critically important that we continue to embrace that. And then the last thing I bring to your attention, which is something that I think we all need to just keep abreast of, is diversity, inclusion. Community is so critically important for the talent that's moving to the city. And again, I'm sure you'll hear from Chad and from Brendan and everybody about what a great community this is. But again, diversity and inclusion, those kind of values are critically important. So wrapping up where we are kind of in the the cycle, I think again, knock on wood, it seems we've weathered the storm of the pandemic and the economic distress that's brought on us. So you see here, we have clearly moved out of the recovery stage into excitement and expansion. We are certainly keeping an eye on imbalance, and those are some of the things like right now, as you see there on the supply demand. Right now, as I mentioned before, demand is certainly outpacing supply, but it's something that we definitely have to keep an eye on. So the market cycle is certainly working in our favor. As you see, there are a couple of the tailwinds that we've got at our back. I mentioned the migration that continues to be, a huge driver. The demographic, the diversity of our city, young, old, all kinds of races, extremely important. And again, obviously continuing to attract technology and talent and workers that have got the discretionary and disposable income to spend not only on rent, but to go to Wells Coffee and go to all the other culture and entertainment venues that are coming to our city. There are obviously, a couple of headwinds that we want to keep our eye on. There's a lot of supply in the market. I mean, I think this market has proven to be extremely resilient so far. We thought we would start to see a little bit of a plateauing in rents this year with the amount of supply that was coming on the market. That certainly did not happen, again, primarily because of the demand that had fueled it. But it's something we obviously want to keep, an eye on. I talked about the balance. Same thing with regards to affordability. I mentioned it. It's critically important that we not lose sight and move to a point where this market becomes completely, priced out of most people's ability to live here and to work here and to enjoy life here. So affordability is something that we've got to really double down on. All of the economics that I talked about before are strong and important, but that balance is critically important as well. And then lastly, some of the macro factors, construction pricing is on average 25 to 30% higher than it was a year ago. If you're going to build a downtown kind of high-rise building, you're generally looking at spending probably about $450,000 a unit to build that. So it's getting increasingly expensive. So that's obviously going to have an effect on pricing. Inflation, I think we've all kind of understood that that's kind of here to stay, and how we're going to, deal with that and manage that. It's certainly, not transitory. And obviously, we're, our hearts go out to the people in Ukraine, and we're paying attention to sort of the macro factors out there. So there are, some areas that we obviously need to, pay attention to, and potentially could create, some headwinds for our market. But generally speaking, as I'm sure, Ty, who's a world traveler, will tell you how Fort Lauderdale, kind of ranks, and Chad will talk to you about all the great things that are happening in Flagler Village, and Brandon and Nicole, one of the other, attributes that people are really attracted to our city is local flavor, uniqueness, authenticity. And so those guys, personify that. And so what we got to do to keep, supporting businesses like Wells is critically important. Same thing with regards to arts, entertainment, park, all of the things that, really lead to, a strong balance in our city, are the things that I think we all need to keep, in our sight as we think about, moving this city forward, because they all matter to the people and the businesses that are looking to move here. And so with that, I will turn it back over to Jenni, and you'll hear from, like I said, the people that are, living and breathing this dream every day. So thanks again for the opportunity, and look forward to our panel.
Ken, thank you so much. You really keep front and center the trends and topics that we need to be aware of. A lot of times this comes off as a pep rally every quarter for downtown Fort Lauderdale, and it certainly is, and we're boosters and advocates, but you help us never lose sight of, what we need to think about as leaders and members of our community to keep it a place that, all can really feel welcome. And we've heard a saying that capital follows talent and talent follows place, and our place needs investment. So we know with the migration that you just talked about and people moving here, the companies see that and they're starting to follow. But in order for those companies to come and for the talent to stay and for us to really enjoy living and working here, we need to keep investing back in our places, our parks, our streets, our transportation, our housing. And there's a lot of great projects on the horizon. I'm sure one of our panels here in the coming months, we're really going to dig deep on these other issues, parks, transportation, mobility, housing affordability. But for now, for the second half of this panel, we're going to have a good dialogue. We're going to talk about, experiences from four different perspectives, 3 different squares on the screen, and really get to know a little bit about what it feels like, what it looks like, and what it means to live in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So we're just going to go through kind of our guests one at a time. And if you could each just talk fairly briefly, but give us your 60-second commercial of when you first started living in downtown Fort Lauderdale, why you chose this as your destination, where you came from, and what, most importantly, what keeps you here. So Ty, why don't you get started for us?
Thank you, Jenni. Good morning, everyone. So I moved here in 2019, and it was purely by accident. I was living in Dallas at the time, and I was really looking at Miami as an option, or New York. And then I experienced what winters in New York were like, and I didn't like that. And I experienced Miami, and I, felt that university was really good, but too much I wasn't ready for the learning Spanish full time again. So I came to Fort Lauderdale and I saw all of the cranes in the sky. And I was like, how amazing would it be to be part of a city that was just becoming a city, to be part of the foundation and the fabric of the city? And so, I have to say I moved to Fort Lauderdale, but I was spending in New York and Miami. And I only 1 year later realized, well, I didn't have to spend that much. There were so many more options. So I learned quickly and adapted. But I mean, just the sheer vibrancy and engagement. It is really an amazing city. And I love being here. I love living downtown, and I love just having access to everything that I have access to.
That's wonderful. Thank you. You're a relative newcomer then on the panel. I spent 3 years here, and 2 of those years have been during a global pandemic, but you're here and we thank you. Chad, I'm going to jump over to you because if I'm not mistaken, you may be the long timer on the panel here. So Chad, tell us your story.
Actually, my great grandparents moved to Miami in the 1940s.
Okay.
So my family's been here for a long time. But I actually grew up in Pembroke Pines. I was a swamp child, running around with water moccasins in the Melaleuca forest. But I moved to downtown Fort Lauderdale in 2008, post-college. But really, I was interviewing in Boston, Chicago, Atlanta, and I was looking for a place that wasn't a snowbird city. And I felt like Fort Lauderdale was known for that, and I wanted an urban environment. But then I realized that Fort Lauderdale had a new generation of people demanding amenities of large cities. And we even had loft buildings, as you can see behind me. And so I am never leaving. I knew I wanted to raise my family here, and I'm very excited about the future. So
that's wonderful. Wow, multi-generational. I love it. I'm sure there's been some amazing stories, and I want to get back to you on the evolution of downtown in your experience. But Brandon and Nicole, welcome, and it's been so nice to get to know you guys over the past month. Tell us a bit about your story.
You or me?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Me?
Sure.
Okay. We started in Boca Raton. Actually, we started our business up there and decided that we wanted to move it down to Fort Lauderdale in 2016. So we started in Flagler Village in 2016. And we have 3 girls, and they came, obviously, we lived in an apartment right next to our shop in Flagler Village. And so we were going back and forth to the shop all the time and raising them, and opened our second shop in October in Tarpon River. And we really just loved the community here in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, coming from Boca, it just felt like just really fresh, would you say? And
nice contrast.
Yeah, super nice contrast. I mean, Jenni, you had asked, kind of what it's like now and why we like it, but we ended up moving in a neighborhood in Tarpon River and started bike riding all over downtown, and just it's kept us here, loving the work that we're doing. And
yeah,
I don't know if you want to add to that.
The only thing I would add is just like the pandemic obviously forced everybody to slow down, and I really feel like that's when our love for the city really came to life. We started bicycling then, walking through different neighborhoods, and just felt like, wow, this is a place we could call home for a really long time.
That's so great. You talk about the neighborhoods in Tarpon and, Flagler, and we saw Ken, you talked about all the wonderful neighborhoods in greater downtown and how there's really different experiences that meet many different, desires and expectations. So Chad, I'm going to bump back to you. Tell us in, your time in Flagler, and how many years exactly has it been since I heard you say, but what have been some of the real...
I bought my place. Sorry, no, I bought my place in 2010 in Avenue Lofts, and that's where I've been.
So
but
more
I
than
moved
a
here in
decade.
2008.
Yeah.
So it was 2 years before.
How would you
Yes.
describe what you've seen in Flagler since you bought there 12 years ago?
So there was a lot of vacant land. It was shortly after the crash of the 2000s. So things really halted, but it was a good time for me to get in. I felt like there was more crime, there was less amenities, but it was exciting to kind of see everything pop up as it did. It felt, like new and fresh, and it felt grassroots more back then. So I was very involved in the community. I felt like I was on the Flagler Village Civic Association. We were starting a community garden project. We were just like really trying to start events down here. Pull people away from Miami and Palm Beach. Like people didn't even know we had an art district in Fort Lauderdale. And we would market all over Miami, and people would be going from Fort Lauderdale to Miami to Wynwood. And we're like, no, we have it right here. Don't worry about the commute. But I'm very excited now that things have dramatically changed and we have so many big players that are interested in the neighborhood and downtown, like Brightline, all the developers, like huge events, cultural events are happening now. So that's what I'm really looking forward to.
That's great. And, for folks who haven't been here for a long time, downtown Fort Lauderdale virtually had no residential development 20 years ago. So, what we've seen with this influx of now 20,000 residents and potentially 30,000 in the next 10 years, it's helped drive more amenities, like you mentioned, activities, events, programming. As they say, retail follows rooftops. And as our population's risen, the offerings that we have grown. And I want to jump back to Brandon and Nicole. Tell us why it's so important for neighborhoods and cities to have, gathering spots, especially in the F&B business, but just places that really create a community. And what do you kind of see for the next phase of retail and, hospitality growth?
Speak to that. So yeah, I would say, the best thing about any city is when you visit it, you never want to leave. And part of what keeps you connected to a city are those gathering places where you're going to see people from all different segments of society coming together. Coffee uniquely gathers people. So we feel really fortunate to be in that industry and chose it because we love that so much. But I think for us, like to have gone into Flagler Village in 2016, opened our doors to the community 1 year later, and to see how we've just been a part of seeing that growth and that transformation of really what is, I think, an artery, of the downtown area, Flagler Village, has been it's been magical, truly. Like, so I always tell people that we get to open our doors every day to the city and welcome them in is just a unique privilege. I think that that area in particular, Flagler Village, you've really seen grow a lot in the last 5 years that we've been there, open to the public, because the amount of transactions we do today versus what we did 5 years ago is dramatically different. And so, people, you come to a city, you're looking for a place to feel connected because you're already maybe not a resident there, or you're a new resident there. And a coffee shop it's the kind of environment where that type of experience can happen.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. And, for those of you on the call, if you have not been to Wells Coffee, you have 2 wonderful locations you can go to. And I strongly encourage you to try it out. Support our local companies here. Ty, I've met you through the chamber, leadership programs, you're out and about, you're making a difference in our community. How is living in downtown Fort Lauderdale giving you those kind of opportunities to really engage and make a difference? And what advice maybe do you give other, young professionals or those that want to give back to the community? It's so important.
Absolutely, Jenny. And there is so much to do in Fort Lauderdale. If you can't find something to do, you don't want something to do. It is it's all around you. If you want to get involved in some stuff, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to do some business activities, there's the chamber, there's the Tower Club. If you want to get involved in social activities, there's the Yacht Club. If you want to get involved in giving back, there are tons of nonprofits. Some of the statistics that really stood out in Ken's presentation were, 68% of downtown Fort Lauderdale single, and 49% live alone. 33% are between 20 and 34. So that just screams like there's so much people wanting to do stuff. And if you're in that group, there are other people like you that want to do stuff. I often tell people, I bought a car when I moved here in 2019. And because I live downtown, I have 3 years later, a total of 12,000 miles on my car. Because you walk everywhere. I just don't use the car. You walk everywhere. You know, they're always, as you guys said, gathering spots. But then, you know, every nonprofit has an event or an activity that you can get involved that showcases what they do, that allow you to participate and give back as a once-off or as a member. The Chamber's got a young professional group, which, you know, shameless plug, that I run. That's very robust and it's got a lot of engagement and activities. So if you are a young professional in the city, if you are not a young professional in the city, just look to your chamber, look to a nonprofit. You just need one jumping point. And from there, you'll see the host of things that are available to you.
That's wonderful. We joked around before we went live on this call that it's all about community collisions, right? You know, it's running into people on the streets and sidewalks, you know, walking your dog or pushing the stroller outside and, you know, meeting new people, but connecting with those that you live around. So that's great. Chad, speaking of connecting and pushing strollers, you're raising 2 young kids in Flagler Village. You know, sometimes we hear from folks, it was great until we wanted to start a family, then we moved to the suburbs. What kept you in downtown Fort Lauderdale? And, you know, tell us about some of the challenges maybe and benefits of raising kids in an urban area. And what should we as leaders at the DDA and other organizations be thinking of for, you know, families with young children?
Okay. Yeah, so if everyone doesn't know, as Ken mentioned, the population has grown, and I doubled the population of our condo in the last 5 years. So we have 2 small children, 5 and 3. But I love living downtown because I'm a man of convenience. So I don't want to commute more than 10 minutes in any direction. And downtown allows more walking and less car. That's first of all. But shockingly, in just the one building in Avenue Lost I live in, building 5, we have 10 children living in this one building. And I try to convince everyone never to leave with their kids, but there are challenges that we face. You know, the real issue now that we're all facing is schools, like school systems. We're all really, our school, local school that we're zoned for is an F school. And obviously we don't really all want to send our children there. So I think the one big issue is school systems and like kind of all this clamoring to get into 1 or 2 schools. Mentioned strollers, so sidewalks is something else that we have challenges with. You never know what it's like to be handicapped until you have a stroller and you're pushing around children. It is very challenging sometimes to get around downtown, but you have to figure out the path that you can take. So I get very excited when a new building's built. I'm like, a new sidewalk, you know, with a tree canopy, even better. So, you know, we always take the path of the Bright Line now when we go downtown because it seems more safe and secure. It's a brand new sidewalk. But the only issue is that we have no way to cross Broward to get across from the Bright Line station. So there needs to be a crosswalk or a light that just coincides with the other lights that are already turning red. You know, things like that, you know, we need to think more about with families, because me running across a major intersection with 2 children is definitely a little frightening. But, you know, I love living downtown because I'm a master gardener. So I love to take the kids along the New River and point out all the gorgeous plants and trees that we have. I mean, like everything from ylang ylang to like live oaks to just lantana, every flower, every butterfly. We collect caterpillars around downtown, bring them home and raise them. You know, we just love doing that. And we go to the Mod Science Museum. It's like an indoor air conditioned playground to me where I can just let them run crazy, where we have an annual membership. And then we get to take the Bright Line to Miami and Palm Beach. We have an annual membership at Frost Science Museum too. It's only 15 minutes from the station down there, and we live a block from it here. It's just like a dream to go down there, visit friends, visit their parks, have access to other big cities. And Palm Beach, I would never go to Palm Beach. Like I avoid it like the plague. Now on the train, I don't care. I'll go. But yeah, so I don't want to move here. I want everyone in my building wants to live here forever with their kids, and we're all raising that as a village. I mean, literally we have parent parties on each floor where we take turns having someone host, and the kids just run crazy, and we get to, you know, kick back a few. So we're happy here. We're excited about the growth, but we're happy now, and we're just looking forward to that with a lot of hope.
Thanks for sharing all that. You know, you hit on so many important topics, whether you're single, with families, empty nesters, it's about connectivity, filling in the blocks, making sure we have the resources, you know, to get around downtown. But you also talked about downtown kind of being a living laboratory for learning. And there's no doubt that, we at the public sector, private sector, nonprofit, the school systems need to start working together with all the growth that's happened here to really start looking at the educational offerings we have. And City of Fort Lauderdale has taken a major step by hiring a chief education officer. And just this morning, I was in an earlier meeting where we talked about, convening a group to really strategize on how urban school offerings really need to be addressed. So Chad, stay tuned. I think you'd be a great, voice in this process. And Brandon and Nicole, to keep on this subject, you both have teenagers. And so you've kind of been through the early years as we've talked about, but, I don't know, not to speak for your kids, but what do you think they think about downtown Fort Lauderdale? And do they want to stay here? Do they want to maybe come back someday if they do leave? And what have you seen in terms of some of the benefits and challenges as a family in downtown?
I mean, initially, when we moved, we had middle schoolers. School was hard to try to figure out where they would go. Now we have our junior is at Cardinal Gibbons, and our soon-to-be freshman daughter is going to Calvary, and we've got another daughter who is in college. She was commuting to FAU and is working for us now, and she's 19, so she's trying to figure out life, and we're trying to help her navigate that. But super fun. So 3 teenage girls in South Florida, they love it. I mean, they love downtown. They love the beach. I mean, that is their playground. I cannot believe we live in a city like Fort Lauderdale with the beach, like right there. I mean, it cannot get more beautiful. I mean, and we, like I said, go along the river all the time, go through Las Olas, through Victoria Park on our bike ride, all the way to, what's our Park and Ocean. We love to stop at Park and Ocean and just have a beer and hang out. We meet a lot of people at Park and Ocean and get to know people from out of town, and they ask us where they should eat. And we're big foodies. We love really great food, love a good environment. And, we're kind of looking at Fort Lauderdale to step that up a little bit and to get even better places here. We're hoping to help bring that about, and we do feel like attracts like. We have a lot of people that are interested in the same things that we are. And there is the Catherine, I know, just opened up, and Heritage, we love Heritage. And there are some really great places that are here now and great places that we can eat. But I think the girls love Fort Lauderdale. They love the city. My 19-year-old especially, and she's working at our Tarpon River location, and she is full of energy and loves to talk to people and just wants to be in a city. I think she likes the city and beach situation a lot. So
suffice it to say that our lives are boring compared to theirs. They're on a boat every weekend with their friends, having a good time. We're just riding bikes. Don't
mind us. We're just working really hard.
That's right. That's part of the brand of our community, is kind of this relaxed elegance, this sophisticated, but still kind of, laid back. And I think that appeals to a wide variety. You mentioned your daughter, or go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, we took them to see Frozen on Broadway last night over at the Broward Center, and we walked out and we were both just like, this is the most beautiful theater. And have you guys all been in there and seen shows?
Absolutely.
We haven't been that much. And I was like, I can't believe we can just walk here and come and see a great show. And then we walk out and there's the river, and it's just gorgeous.
We have something special, our natural assets here in Fort Lauderdale, complemented with these great civic places. Ken, I'm going to ask you, talk a little bit about what some of these exciting, cultural and civic investments are that are happening. You work with the City of Fort Lauderdale. We have the Florida Panthers investing in Holiday Park, Parker Playhouse, which is also part of Broward Center. The city commissioners just approved a fairly controversial project, an arts park, but at the DDA, we're rebuilding Huizinga Park to really appeal to a multi-generational kind of daily use program. But how would you describe a little bit about how important these places are, these civic investments, and what that means for the character of Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah, I think it's critically important. I mean, every conversation we have with the companies that are looking to move into this area, right behind, kind of education, you're starting to hear conversations about cultural entertainment, open spaces, and how they interact with the city, and does the city believe in them? Does the city invest in them? And again, I think our city is really leading the way. If you look, you did mention like the soccer stadium, and some of these things are, they're all new, relatively speaking. The Parker is coming on, is online now. So it's critically important, because they know that their talent that's moving from, Menlo Park or Chicago or Boston or whatever, they're used to these things. And to Nicole's point, the next thing that's kind of on the radar screen is really to evolve into a great, food, mecca here. I think there's a huge kind of demand for it. You're gonna, you're gonna bring some new world class to Huizenga. The Arts Park will have its share of it. There are a number of, sort of celebrity inspired chefs running around the market now, looking to capitalize on, all of the dynamics here. So all of these dynamics, culture, entertainment, open space, food, obviously all point to, like you said, this aspect of community, of people engaging with one another, of people appreciating, all of those attributes. So we're clearly in the right trajectory. And I think there's obviously even, more to be done there.
That's great. That's good. Ty, I'm going to ask you a quick question. So as I understand, you have traveled all over the world and you don't sit still. You've actually moved a couple times in your short 3 years here in downtown Fort Lauderdale, but is it just finding the next shiny best object and moving on up, as they say, or is it really just, how would you describe your experience around the world as it compares to the uniqueness of what we have here, and especially from the type of residential offerings that we have?
So, I've lived in 8 cities around the world. Fort Lauderdale is number 8, and I love it. I've moved from the Icon to Fort West, and Fort West didn't exist when I first moved to downtown Fort Lauderdale. So I would say that there's an evolution of the residential product. Icon, I loved. It's great. It's fantastic. It's the perfect location. And funnily enough, when I lived at the Icon, I experienced what Las Olas was from a different perspective. Having moved to Fort West, I didn't discover this side of Fort Lauderdale at all. I mean, when I lived in San Francisco,
and it's 3 blocks apart. Isn't that
literally
right?
is. It literally is. When I lived in San Francisco, we had pockets of the city that were just their own neighborhoods. And Fort Lauderdale is too small to have that, but it does. It literally does. Because living in like Icon, you experience Las Olas to the beach, and then now in Fort West, there's another side of Las Olas that I'm experiencing, and I'm sure the same can be said for Flagler Village and so on. But for me, it was discovering a whole new space, a new opportunity, getting a new neighborhood, as it were, even though I'm still in a high rise. And it really does compare to other cities around the world. It compares to San Francisco, it compares to London, it compares to other cities that have the same product offering. And I like the fact that more buildings are going up and there's more opportunity to try out something new, as more opportunities pop up. The one thing I'm missing is I'd love to buy. And I know purchasing, the statistics again that Ken mentioned, there's not a lot of condo opportunities downtown itself. So I've resigned myself to saying, okay, I'll buy somewhere, but I'll keep a studio downtown, which is more expensive for me, but downtown gets to keep the money.
Well, that's great. And since you've
I think that's going to change, Ty. I think we're starting to see people understand, and the capital that understands that there's a need for more ownership product in this market. And I think that's coming as we continue to evolve.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're closing in on the hour, and I want to just remind folks that are on the Zoom, if you have any questions, any comments that you want to share in the chat, we'll address those before we wrap up. We're going to jump over to kind of rapid fire. And I know, Brandon, Nicole, you laid out some names of great restaurants and places and destinations you go to. I want to hear from everyone, and you get to go again. What's your favorite restaurant or entertainment venue? Tell us your favorite park. Tell us what event you never miss when it's in downtown. So let's hit in that order. Round robin. Go, Chad.
So I do all of them right now?
Well, sure.
Okay. So favorite restaurant is OB House. Favorite coffee shop, just so you know, I actually got my husband every single coffee from around the world, like local roasters, and he only drinks Wells. So just so you know that. My favorite park, Feldman Park, down the street. Favorite event, annual Day of the Dead, never miss it. All these posters back here, you can see on my wall, all from the history of Day of the Dead. And then my favorite monthly event is just coming back now, the Food in Motion event at Feldman Park. So I'm very excited about that.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're going to have to post all of those for folks who get our Friday newsletters. We try to hit all those great events. Make sure you go to it. Okay, Brandon, Nicole, you're up again. Restaurant, park, experience, events.
I would say a restaurant toss-up between Heritage and the Catherine. Even though we haven't been to the Catherine for a meal since they've opened, we love Timon so much and love his food program and his commitment to just culinary excellence. And then I would say, as far as parks go, definitely Hugh Birch State Park. The weekend cannot expire without us going there. And then as far as like events, I mean, anything that is at the Parker, any live music there, or at Broward Center. I mean, I just think those are like the most special places to see shows.
That's great. So many wonderful amenities. Ty.
I love the Flaming Posh at Posh Sushi Restaurant in the Waverly. But I also like restaurant-wise the Tower Club. Can't get a better view than that. In terms of park, I love Huizinga Park because I get to look out at everything that happens there. So it's free entertainment. And then finally, event. It's always the Winterfest boat parade and all of the events that go along with that. But I also love the Men of Style that happens at Galleria. Best networking event in Fort Lauderdale, I think.
Men of Style. Well, speaking of Men of Style, Ken, you get to go too. What are your favorites?
Well, I'm a sort of a corporate guy, and so I grew up on YOLO, and so that's still my go-to spot. It's still my favorite spot. My favorite my park, I'd have to say, is the beach. I mean, to me, I don't know if some people call that a park, but to me, that's the favorite spot. And again, I love the boat show and everything that goes around the boat show. So that's a can't miss event for me. So a little bit on the bigger side, I love the local flavor that these guys bring, but those are kind of go-to events and places that speak to the greatness of the city.
For my girls, I will say the Tortuga Festival is a big one for
Yes,
them. So they're super pumped about that happening in the next few weeks. So the wristband just came, and that's an awesome festival.
That is a great one. You're right.
That's great. That's great. Well, I have so many breakfast meetings. I must say Top Hat is second to none.
Yes.
And I'll eat breakfast even if it's a lunch meeting. So, and Bloody Marys on the weekends aren't bad either. But, events, you guys hit so many, and I haven't been for quite some time, but you think about signature events like the Jazz Brunch, that's, monthly and has been for decades, and how we can keep great, legacy events just improving as we go. And parks, I'm excited to reimagine Huizinga Park, and I'll tell everyone all about that on a future panel. So I think we're going to wrap that up. I want to thank everybody who participated today. Ty, Chad, Brandon, Nicole, Ken, as always, your information is invaluable. For those on the call, stay tuned. We have just a couple more months before our next installment of the Pulse of Downtown Fort Lauderdale. We'll be back. We'll be focusing in on commercial real estate. And we hope you all have a wonderful weekend. So bye-bye.
Thanks, Jenny. Good seeing
you
everybody.
so much.
Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.